Well, hello everyone, this is Angel Michael. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Today I want to talk about an important issue that affects families and our society and even touches the church. And the title of this video is called Domestic Violence Lies, Even Told in Church as Fact. One of the main reasons the ex-president of the Southern Baptist Convention, if you're familiar with Southern Baptist, was forced to resign was because of his stance on domestic violence. This ex-president's name is Dr. Paige Patterson. Was forced to resign after the backlash against a sermon he gave about women who face domestic abuse should not divorce their abusive husband but remain with him. The Bible does not give any indication that it's okay to divorce your spouse for abuse, because the Bible actually tells us that we should stay together, and that if that person is a Christian, that the Holy Spirit will work in their life and they will change. But of course, people today don't depend on the Holy Spirit and don't really have much of a spiritual life to begin with. So of course, all these women were in an uproar when they said that they should remain married to an abusive spouse. Of course, the same women who were up in an uproar about this whole situation, and how many of these are actually abusive themselves and today? And of course, we don't want to talk about that now, do we? We can tell how many of these same women complaining about Patterson are actually ones doing the abusing themselves. We have the kettle calling the pot black now, don't we? Women are just as capable of domestic abuse and violence as any man, and some are even more sinister and sadistic than men who plan out abuse. All you gotta do is watch television and see this played out on television all the time. It's been going on for the past 25, 30 years, showing how women are come up with some very horrible means of getting back at people when they don't like them, husband, boyfriends, or whatever. But of course, no, women don't do bad things. Domestic violence is an industry that gets tens of millions of dollars a year by getting federal funding from the government by our tax dollars. According to the website Fathers for Kids, the Fathers for Equal Rights group has written some very good articles exposing the lies of the government and federally funded feminist groups who spat off lies about the statistics. According to the Office of Violence Against Women, 34% of men suffer domestic violence, but of course you don't hear about that on the news. It could actually be higher than that. It could be as high as 48%. But see, the thing is, most men don't want to talk about it and report this violence for fear of being made fun of or belittled. Women's groups lie and say 95% of all domestic violence is perpetrated against women, which is a blatant lie, because the Office of Violence Against Women states opposite. It says 34% of men are the ones suffering. So they're lying right there. There is no evidence to support such skewed numbers that these women groups are putting across. These numbers are falsely represented and lied about to gain federal funding for feminist groups that make tons of money off of domestic violence. It's basically an industry. The Violence Against Women's Act, or called VAWA, is the main piece of legislation that upholds the lies of these man-hating feminist bitches, who, by the way, are made up about 95% of a bunch of lesbians. White knight a-holes like Joe Biden, Representative Joe Biden, ex-vice president. He was the politician that helped put together this anti-male and unconstitutional piece of garbage legislation. These politicians were trying to pander to their voting base, and of course the squeaking wheel always gets the most grease, you might say. We all know that Joe Biden doesn't care about women. He's a classless, sick, perverted pedophile himself. There are many videos online of old creepy Joe Biden putting his hands all over prepubescent girls. There was one of a 13-year-old that he was patting on the rear end and saying some vulgar sexual comments to these young girls. Caught on video now. It's not hearsay, it's on video. Do your own look it up on YouTube. Biden should be locked up and listed as a sexual predator, but instead he's supposed to be some type of uh, hero to women. Right. And these are the kinds of people we're supposed to look up to and tell us the truth about abuse against women? What a bunch of hypocritical horse manure. This next section I'll be reading is borrowed from the website of fathersforkids.com. Radical feminist groups have been working overtime for many years to promote this libelous propaganda that men are violent towards women and children and can't be trusted. If a lie is repeated often enough, people start believing it. And in fact, most of the policymakers in American society, Washington, D.C., bought into this lie. One result is millions of dollars of our tax money being funneled to these domestic violence shelters and other related programs. And by the way, there aren't any shelters for men at all in this country. There are a couple that are funded privately by individuals, not by our tax money. Another result of this pernicious libel is seen in domestic violence laws that presume that men are the primary aggressors. We all know that if mom calls 911, dad will be arrested. If dad calls 911, he will still be arrested. Fathers, grandfathers, husbands, boyfriends are all portrayed by shelter spokespeople, and I use that loosely, most of them are female, as being untrustworthy, unless, of course, they needed to be sent to Afghanistan for war. Fathers' organizations now estimate that up to 80% of domestic violence allegations against men are false. Since society offers women so many perks for claiming that they are victims of domestic violence, we call these perks warm milk and cookies. False or staged DV domestic violence allegations now appear to be more frequent in family court cases than false sex abuse allegations, and they are much easier to fabricate. Mom can simply scratch her arm with her fingernail and claim that dad did it to her. Many men plead no contest to these allegations, often because they cannot afford good legal representation. What father who has been kicked out of his own house, estranged from his children, paying exorbitant child support and spousal support, and may lose their job if convicted of domestic violence, can afford a good legal representation, both in family court and in criminal court? So he rolls over and pleads no contest, which of course is the kiss of death in the custody case. It may also this will keep him from owning a gun, including a rifle or a shotgun for hunting purposes, and in many cases it has resulted in good police officers losing their jobs because they can't carry a gun, or even soldiers being dismissed from the military because they too are often prohibited from using firearms. The domestic violence industry was hijacked by feminists about 30 years ago. However, perhaps the most damaging process took place some 15 years ago, namely the fusion of the domestic violence industry with the divorce industry. Simply stated, women know and are often advised by their attorneys that if they want to get custody of the children, they better try to nail dad with some sort of domestic violence accusation. In many states, that alone will put a nail in the coffin. Dad will be labeled as a perpetrator, will lose custody of his children, and will be placed under supervised visitation with his children. Will often have to pay mom's attorney fees, and court cases costs will be ordered to pay besides alimony. Will be forced to pay for and attend anger management or batterers classes lasting about 36 weeks. And he will be required by the court to send financial contributions to the local women's shelter. This reminds me of Nazis practicing of forcing Jews to purchase tickets for their own train rides to death camps. Keep in mind the domestic violence allegation against dad does not have to be true. It only has to sound plausible for it to stick. Now, we see the devastating success of the poisonous propaganda. Goebbels couldn't have orchestrated it better. And by the way, let me remind people who claim to be Christians, who perpetrate lies, you are not going to heaven. You're going straight to hell as soon as you die, because this is wrong. Read Revelations 21:8. People who lie and make a lifestyle of lying, you will never, ever make it into heaven. And I can tell you one thing right now, that this country is following the same path as Sodom and Gomorrah. If you do any research about Sodom and Gomorrah and why it was destroyed, the way that this our legal system is set up is exactly like the way that this system was set up in Sodom and Gomorrah back in the day. And that's one of the main reasons why Sodom was wiped out. And I believe, and I truly believe, all indications are that America is going to be wiped out with fire, just like Sodom and Gomorrah did. Because God is sick of these people lying, cheating, stealing from other people, abusing children, stealing children. We've got pedophiles in the government that are stealing the children directly from families so they can abuse them however they want to. God's not going to stand for this forever. Let me go on with what the article has to say here from the website I was talking about. Texas Fathers for Equal Rights is adamant in its belief that child abuse in general cannot be tolerated, and child sexual abuse in particular is among the most heinous of deeds. Sexual abusers of children must be exposed for their criminal acts. The guilty must be punished, and children must be protected from their aggressors. Well, you know, that's hard to do when you have people in power in the federal, state, local, and federal government who have money. They're going to protect themselves as much as they possibly can and use that money that they have to get the best legal representation. And so you're really going to have some decent people in power who are willing to overlook the bribes that these people are going to try their best to bribe the judges and all the officials to keep from being prosecuted. That's the problem in our country right now, is that the judges are willing to take bribes, and that's exactly another reason why Sodom was destroyed, is the bribery that was allowed to go on. And in ancient Israel, the same thing happened. God destroyed them because of the wickedness. And it's going on in this country like crazy. Fact, according to nationwide CPS statistics, the largest percentage of child abuse and neglect is perpetrated by females acting alone. Remember Andrea Yates, Susan Smith, Darlie Router? Fathers are far less likely to be child abuse and neglect perpetrators. In other words, children are safer from child abuse and neglect with their own fathers than with the mother. A college study asked male and female students if they had a sexual experience before age 15 with a person 5 or more years older. The result were that 59% of the students were molested by a female. Of male college students surveyed, 43, I think is the number, 60% of the 43 reported being sexually victimized by a female. Now that's shocking, isn't it? But you won't hear that on the news. Fathers for Equal Rights organizations demand that state and federal laws that severely punish those who make false claims of domestic violence, and they should be. The guilty must be punished. That is, that those who commit the act and those who falsely accuse a spouse or a boyfriend to gain advantages in a divorce. It's wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. The Fathers for Equal Rights organization wants to share information and remove stereotypes connected with domestic violence. Knowledge is power. That is the purpose of these groups for men, to help with domestic violence problems. Learn how that the domestic violence industry thinks and works. Learn how they deceive the lawmakers and the public, and study the techniques they use. Learn about their collaborators in the police departments, the prosecutor's office, and the federally funded legal service programs, and in the courtroom, which is the worst of all. Follow the money trail and discover who is enriched by the mass demonization and criminalization of men and fathers. Prevention is best, but if you are facing a false domestic violence accusation, you want to have the knowledge and tools to fight back and effectively protect the rights of your children to have a positive, healthy, and meaningful relationship with you, their nurturing father. If you have been accused by a spouse, girlfriend, or other female of abusing them or a child, you are asked to turn to one of the many chapters of the Father for Equal Rights groups around our country, and they can help you with legal assistance. And it sounds like a very good group to me. Now, this has to do with the church. I'm going to get to that in just a second. Last year, my mom asked me to take her to a meeting of our local Southern Baptist Convention Women's Missionary Union group. It was being held on a Sunday night at a local church here. Since my mom can't drive anymore, I took her, and I had to sit through an overdrawn, light-spewed emotional talk about domestic violence. Not a single thing was ever said about men who were abused during this whole program. I had to sit there for over an hour. The same old lies of the 1 in 4 women will be raped in their lifetime statistic was given. The same old lie that we have heard for the past 2 decades now. The same horse manure that they used to shove down the throats of young men in college is now told in our churches as gospel truth. Even without even knowing that these statistics are lies, because of countless studies that have been done over the years, anyone with any common sense would know these statistics are lies. If it was so that 1 in 4 women were raped in their lifetime, wouldn't we hear about rape at least twice a week in our local newspaper or on the news? Of course these are lies. It's all about demonizing men so they can remove our rights, taking away due process from men. That's exactly what the VAWA laws, the Violence Against Women Act, were designed to do, which is why it is so unconstitutional. Due process means that you have to have proof to charge someone with a crime. The whole idea that you are innocent until proven guilty no longer exists with these laws. Feminists say women never lie about sexual abuse or rape, but statistics prove otherwise. The police have caught many, many women giving false testimony and falsely accusing men of sexual abuse, harassment, and even rape. Given the latest statistics that 85% of men ages 18 to 45 are single, never married, and probably don't have a relationship with a female. So how is it possible that we have so many supposedly women being raped? If that many men, that would mean 85% from 18 to 45. From what I understand about the population, that's over 120 million men who are not married. Now, how many of those, those are people that are single, that are not having any kind of relationship? I'd be curious to know that. I don't have those statistics. But considering the fact that when I was in the singles groups, most of the young men that I knew were single, never married before, didn't have any relationship with a female. So how could it possibly be that many women, 1 in 4, who've been raped, if these guys don't even have a relationship, let alone a sexual relationship with females? And actually, I think it's higher than that, because from what I understand, men over the age of 45, I'd say 50 and higher, over 50% are single. And from what I remember, the last statistic I read, of men of 50 and over who've never married, that includes myself, have never had a long-term relationship, and most definitely don't have the same chances that younger guys do of having a sexual relationship anyway. I'm 52 and I've never been married. I don't date, and neither does my brother, who is 50. I don't know how many men of this group even date, let alone have any kind of physical sexual relationship with women. But considering this is a huge number of men who aren't involved with women at all, it's not even possible that these numbers that they give of the abuse of women, rape, or whatever they want to call it, that, of course, that changes from day to day, how they describe that situation. That can't possibly be true. I've read that much of the abuse of women now is actually being committed by other women. And that's because a lot of them are lesbians. Lesbians are the ones perpetrating this abuse in record numbers. Do your own research. You will find that out too. Women in general abuse young children and boys is on a rise as well. It seems that every week there is a new case of a female teacher caught having sex with underage boys. So many, in fact, that the mainstream news media refuses to even talk about it anymore, because it goes against the mainstream feminist narrative and agenda that men are the only ones who abuse and or rape children. According to them, men are bad, men are abusers, and women are good, never lie, they're always reliable, which is a bunch of horse crap. This couldn't possibly be further from the truth. I tend to believe that feminists and the mainstream media are being used to propagate the globalist New World Order and the deep state. They must attack and take away as many rights as possible from people in our country, especially from men. Feminists are evil and stupid sheep being used to help remove our God-given rights. When and if the communists, these people are communists, globalists are communists, take over, the feminists, these ignorant feminist females, are going to be the first group of people that they will eliminate as their reward for helping them destroy our nation. Now, that's always happened in history. Every group that was duped and used to try to, as a pawn to destroy a society, has always been eliminated because they know too much. So this is why I think MGTOW will keep growing. Guys are afraid to be involved with women in case they get falsely accused of any kind of abuse. And this is just one segment of a wider movement. The latest movement, of course, that's getting publicity is the hashtag #MeToo movement. It's only been going on for 25, 30 years, but the Me Too movement is the latest generation of it, of this abuse against men. It's been going on for years. In the long run, as men retreat from women and refuse to have any kind of relationship with women, it is the women who will suffer. Guys are now refusing to even speak to females where they work, refusing to lend any aid to women, even in cases of women being physically attacked in public, because they're afraid of a backlash. So many good Samaritan men have been sued and even jailed for trying to help a female, which to me is beyond belief but it actually happens. Do your research, and it happens all the time. These feminist women will find themselves totally alone and vulnerable to attackers or muggers. And even in this country, like it's happening in Europe, foreign rape gangs are coming into the country, and they will be sorry if they ever try to remove the rights of the men, because the men are not going to be there to help them. No man is going to come to your aid, ladies, and I use that term loosely. You will be alone, and it will be your fault. You have no one else to blame for your sheer stupidity. You better learn self-defense or get a gun, if you're able to get one, since so many of you silly women are also anti-gun morons. Nobody is going to help you fools. All we can do is expose the lies and hope and pray people wake up to the truth of the domestic violence industry and their lies before it's too late. Some people are in for a rude awakening, that's for sure. As a Christian, you better be careful what information you give out is fact. It could be a lie. God holds us accountable for telling lies, people. Preachers and lay people alike, you better not let people who lie come into your church and lie. You will have to suffer the same fate as the people who lie. The Bible clearly teaches that everyone who lies will never ever go to heaven. Do you want to miss out on heaven just because you promote and believe lies told by godless, wicked people? Don't allow these liars to come into your church and lie. Arm yourself with knowledge. The Bible tells us to search the spirits of these people we want to believe. And again, reread Revelation 21:8. I don't want to have to repeat it again because I've been doing this for the past several different episodes here. But read Revelation 21:8 for yourself. Well, guys, I look forward to your comments. Please be courteous and adult and don't leave nasty comments. They will be removed and you will be blocked. Have a great day and God bless you.